Okay, thanks, Tiffany. Um, Welcome, everybody. It's the 2023 Mental Rules meeting. I'd like to start out by reminding everybody, if you're not talking, please mute your phone so we don't have interference in the background. I also want to thank the people who have participated to this point to provide these rules, the rules committees, and we'll be going over the people in these committees that have contributed. Also, wanted to thank Tiffany for arranging this meeting for us today. Also, getting the rules in format so they can be put up on the MSHA website, which they are now. Also wanted to thank Erica Warren. She's our chief registrar, and she helped get the word out to people. We contacted over 1,000 people for this meeting. So if people missed it somehow, they can listen to the recordings. Also want to thank Brian Thompson. He's one of the co-directors for METL. Sammy Linville, he was the chairman of the Mine Rescue Advisory Committee. Brian Millington, he's taking over for Sammy. And also we have Matt Ridgway as the co-chairman. I'd like to turn this over to the Brian Millington. Brian, if you want to say something, now's the time.
No, I just want to say thank you for everybody that was involved in the Metal Non-Metal Committee and helping to get these rules put together. Other than that, that's all I got. So if there's any questions, y'all can utilize the chat box, or we'll wait till the end and then we'll try to answer any questions you have. But I'm going to let Matt Ridgway go through the rules since he's the chair of the Rules Committee. But anybody have anything for me? His mic's not working. I can help guide through this. So.
Yeah, why don't you do that?
Yeah. So if you want to scroll down to the first change there, then all the red additions in the beginning is just the winners and what was added to after the national contest.
Okay.
I think we go down to general rules.
Mm-hmm. Hopefully you all can see that.
Yep. Good to go.
Hey, Brian, Matt said that he can hear everyone. He just can't speak.
I got you. I'll take it. So, one of the things that after we went out of the merger with Cove, and we just went back to our old rule book and we had to change a bunch of things in here. So some of it may be non-relative to what we're doing. We just had to clean up the rule book a little bit. So one, the tech competition, bench, and first aid competition. And then we struck out the team trainer because we removed that. So the next change there, concerning the mine rescue teams may register a minimum of 6 people and 8 of those competing members. The team trainer if the team trainer competes as one of the competitions, he or she may be included as part of the 8-man team. This may or may not include a benchman as a standalone contest. So that just means you can enter as many benchmen as you like. So as long as they're not competing on a first aid team or the team tech. Another change in this section is we removed the team logo portion out of there. So you still have to be dressed uniformly the same, but you don't have to necessarily have a logo. So everybody can have the same color shirt, but if they don't have a logo, then that's no big deal. We did add that in addition to being posted on the MSHA website, these will also be posted on the HOMS website. And I'm just going to go through all the changes, and if y'all have any questions or anything, just stop me as we go through this, okay? We struck out on the day before the contest begins, prior to lockup, because different contests are the same, and looking at the way we're going to have to structure the nationals with having 2 days, we really don't know what that day is, but prior to lockup, all equipment should be in isolation. And then we also struck out the same thing on the day before the contest begins, a written test. So written test should be administered in lockup or as the contest director see fit. But there will be no more team trainer test, and a maximum of 60 minutes will be allowed to complete all required testing. So we just struck out total there. The next big change concerning the mine rescue field portion, you'll draw for day 1 and then run in reverse order for day 2. All other disciplines will have separate draws as we're adding co and intermixing with these contests, so they'll have their own separate draw. Everything else was struck out. We added a segment in there. It's preferred that each team that registers, they provide their own patients. However, if the team does not have resources, then we'll work with those teams and make sure that they have patients on the field. There's always volunteers and people willing to help at the contest, and I know a lot of teams don't necessarily have the members or the resources to send a bunch of extra patients. So we prefer you bring a patient, but if you can't, that's no big deal. We just added another segment in there, like when we're putting units on a patient or whatever, unless the contest director prior to starting the problem tells you anything different than that allows him to do so. Scroll down to the next red line. We did add, I know at the last nationals, we seen that average time discount. So we added this into the general rules. So an average time discount will be applied for teams working above the average working time. Good, if you can scroll down a little more. And we struck out the 1-day event there for the regional contest. For under guidelines and procedures, team members, each team shall be composed of 5 members, 1 fresh air base attendant and 1 command center attendant. We're basically doing the same thing that Cole was doing here. So you'll have a fresh air base, and then you have a command center attendant or an alternate. So, and throughout this document, you'll see that struck out, and we just changed it from assistant to command center attendant. Same person there as number 7. It's just a different name for that person. Scroll on down a little bit. When talking about comparing maps, we struck out once they leave the fresh air base to once they make their 50-foot check. So once you make that 50-foot team check, no side-by-side comparisons are allowed. Down to lifeline. So a lifeline will still be required for the working of the problem. And then we struck out when any team member enters, the entire team advances into smoke or team travels through smoke. If the smoke is encountered during a team stop, as long as the team is on their team line, other members of the team can make that area as long as the tail captain is in fresh air. If the team travels through smoke, then a lifeline will have to be established in fresh air. So once you're at that team stop and the the tail captain is in fresh air, as long as everybody's on their link line, then they can do anything they want to in that team stop. But once they advance, then that tail captain has to drop an anchor before that team can go forward. Okay. We struck out number 7 and put number 8. The command center attendant will now be number 7, and your assistant or your alternate will be number 8. The next addition there is we just added to communicate in person. So in either case, when teams wishing to communicate with the fresh air base attendant shall use their portable communication system, or they may return to the fresh air base to communicate in person. So if communication is lost for whatever reason, then you have to go back out and communicate in person. We clarified the good face-to-face seal a little more. If leakage occurs to the point to where the bottle needs to be changed, teams will be discounted accordingly. If that person's not clean shaven. So I think the next one is under team preparation. We added care vent in, and then we took out the word spare and put egress. So an approved 4-hour oxygen breathing apparatus, care vent, and or an approved 1-hour oxygen generating unit must be used as an emergency egress for a mine rescue team member, or for the use of survivor when other rescued personnel, when respiratory protection is needed. And then we struck out the last sentence there. Written test, again, we struck out alternate because your number 7 person is now the command center attendant. We did go back to the MSHA 3027, and we're no longer doing the test questions out of the draft, the IG 115. So, and module 1 surface organization is added back into the test. We also are adding true and false questions back into the mine rescue field portion, and with four answers being the maximum number of choices for multiple choice questions. Under judges, we added any relevant information or predetermined information pertaining to the field problem will only be answered by the number 1 judge. That just helps eliminate confusion between the mine manager or, you know, the surface judge or number 2 judge. And we cleaned up a little bit during preparation at the fresh air base. Just to help clarify that a little bit more. All right, we'll scroll down. We did add in a couple things here. So teams may have to change existing ventilation, pump water, set roof supports, or move. We struck out falls and put piles or to rescue persons and or explore if it can be done safely. If falls can be moved, there will be a placard denoting the condition of the back. All right. And then upon reentry into these areas where the ventilation has been changed, whether advancing or retreating through these areas, separate gas tests will be conducted by the team. We struck out along and then added at openings of the route of travel, and then struck out the rest of that. And then we also added a figure for reference for everybody to see. So after ventilation change has been conducted, so if you look at figure 1 and figure 2, then that would be where your gas test will need to be taken when coming back out. If you'll scroll down to the figures there, Tiffany. Cool. So the red dotted line denotes where those gas tests would be required at once retreating back out or during your route of travel after a ventilation change. Just to help clarify that a little bit more. All right. The next one we added, we just added an extra field judge in there past the ground committee, and then gas tests are not required to initiate a placard change or successful ventilation change. If placards have not been changed after 15 seconds, teams must assume that their actions were not successful. When it becomes necessary to explore inaccessible areas, appropriate materials will be provided. Tops of overcast will be considered explored once both sides are made unless otherwise denoted by placard. So once you make all sides of the overcast, then the top would be considered explored. We also took out the last sentence and changed it. Portable communication systems may be checked for proper operation prior to starting the clock. So that will be done. So you can check communications with Fresh Air Base prior to doing anything starting the clock. Hoist signals. We struck out everything and then we added in when hoist signals are provided by Problem Design, those signals will be used. When no signals are provided, teams can simply just state or call, I'm releasing or calling the cage and or dictating the movement. So up, down, etc. Whenever there is hoist signals provided by the Problem Design, then those hoist signals have to be used. Otherwise, you can simply say, hey, I'm calling the cage or releasing the cage or cage up or cage down. We did take out the stretcher barriers. We'll pick up the stretchers. This was done in the past at the Fresh Air Base as part of the judging, but it's not even included in the rules anymore. So we just struck that sentence out. And we added in a segment there afterwards that the team captain should warn the team each time ground conditions are encountered. A similar warning must be given upon retreat, and that can be by any working team member. The first intersection will be a blocked intersection. However, the team will be permitted to tie across to adjacent drifts to tie in behind. If accessible, teams must tie across before and behind before advancing. So you really need to work. We want teams to work, all the way across 1, 2, and 3 and across the crosscut if it's accessible before they advance forward. And under IDLH atmospheres, we added that any smoke is considered an IDLH. And we removed all the DNIs and stuff for on the team and Fresh Air Base maps. It's not required. Some teams still going to put it on there, but by rule and discount that's no longer required to be on the maps. We just clarified where teams need. We struck out team and will not be permitted to carry additional Bradis materials on their stretcher. Whatever Bradis material or timbers or line curtain, that's all to be provided by the problem design. So you can't bring outside sources of materials in with you. And then for building purposes, ventilation structures built by the team may be placed perpendicular across an entry, crosscut, or an opening, or diagonally from safe corner to safe corner at intersections. Corners are considered safe unless otherwise indicated by placard. So if it's not indicated by placard that it's not safe, then it's intended to be safe. Then we added in some examples just to help show proper methods for setting roof supports. All right, surface discount sheets. So we did add in, or we increased the discount for improperly assembled apparatus. An apparatus with no soda lime in it, and we've seen this across multiple contests. People forgetting to put soda lime in it or not checking their unit before going on the field. So we wanted to make this a harsh discount. So if it happens, then it's not just a 10-point discount. You're going to get a 100-point discount because we got to make sure that we're keeping people safe. So we don't want anybody to go down on the field, and we've seen it way too many times. So team should be checking all this stuff, making sure it's ready to go and lock up. And then if you get to the field and it's not there and you have a team member go down or get sick, then you're going to get that 100-point discount. And we also changed the discount there for the good clean shaven and face-to-face seal. Again, it's 15 discounts, but if you read back in the rule that we added, or the clarification we added, if you lose your oxygen, you're gonna get that discount.
Hey, Brian, is that discount just for no soda lime or any improper apparatus assembly?
Yeah, I think it's, if you scroll on down, we've got it in the explanation there. So it would be any, so if you put parts together wrong, I guess you could consider it any improperly assembled unit, but mainly with the no soda lime in it. So, I mean, if somebody doesn't hook their hoses up right, or doesn't put their breathing bag in it, or is missing parts, then again, they'll still receive that discount. So, because the first sentence remains, apparatus not meeting manufacturer's life critical specifications during use. So that would cover anything that they applied or didn't put together right. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I didn't know if it was going to be a separate discount for the rest of it or not, if it was just for the soda lime.
It's going to be all the same. I mean, if you don't put your unit together right, then you should get that discount.
Nope, that works. Thanks.
Yep. And we wanted to make sure that we added in the soda lime stuff somewhere, and that's where it best fit. So, and then explanation for the good face-to-face seal. Again, if leakage occurs to the point to where the bottle needs to be changed, then this discount will be applied. And for number 9, scroll up, let's see what discount 9 is. No work done. I got you.
Yeah.
No work done before the clock is started, and that excludes checking the communication system, because we added that portion in that you can do that with prior to starting the clock. We added breathing external air while working the problem in by the fresh air base. So once you go in by the fresh air base, then we just clarified that a little bit more. the apparatus checks, so we added a sentence to the end of there. So if somebody hits their apparatus or bumps into another team member doing something, it's not to be assessed for minor incidental contact. So if you accidentally bump into another teammate, then you don't have to stop and do a apparatus check. However, if you bump into them and now it starts blowing air, you have visible damage, then yes, you do have to do an apparatus check then. A little more clarification on the team endangerment as well. We added for number 2 there, traveling over knee-deep water into a sump over knee-deep. Then on number 7, we struck out lifeline and put team line in. And then the entire team would be counted under number 3 there. We added or an unexplored area, and then struck out changing conditions in the mine ventilation system. Number 7, we just added an intentional act. And then number 9, enters smoke and is not connected to the lifeline. So if you're not on the lifeline once you enter smoke, unless you're still on your team line and the tail captain is anchored in fresh air, but once you advance, then you would receive that discount. We had to change a figure number there. It's not 1, it's 4 now. And then we just added in some clarification for delay. And it's pretty lengthy, and we basically just copied and pasted, what Royal Co had already had this clarified pretty good. So we just basically used what they had for delay. So when a team finds a patient, either by visual or verbal contact, every effort must be made to remove them safely and promptly to the fresh air base. Visual contact will require the captain's presence in an area. Verbal contact is any voice communication from the patient or patients that can be reasonably expected to be heard by the team. A maximum of 1 live person may be found in each refuge alternative. When a team reaches a patient, visual contact, every effort must be made to move them safely and promptly to the fresh air base. Exploring ahead of the location will be limited to the stopping point of the tail captain. The stopping point from the tail captain will be determined from the stopping point at or out by the patients. Once the team reaches the patient with visual contact, the team may perform any function during this team stop. However, teams will not be allowed to build ventilation controls, timber unsafe roof, or pump water unless necessary to recover the patient. So if you do any other work during that team stop where you can recover a patient, then you'll get that delay discount. The team may not continue to explore while exiting with the patient unless required to by problem design. Once the team starts to exit the mine with a patient, the team must continue directly to the fresh air base or surface prior to retrieving other patients. So you can't stop and pick anybody else up. You can't re-explore other areas or go into new areas. You have to immediately go back out to the fresh air base. And then basically the same thing. If the team is in verbal visual contact with a patient and the team is unable to immediately reach the patient due to the conditions of the mine, the team may continue to explore if necessary for its own or the patient's safety. During the exploration process, the team may perform any function during the team stops. Every patient shall be safely and promptly removed to the mine as soon as means and or materials are available. If a team finds a patient under or in by an area of unsafe roof and has the necessary roof support available to recover the patient, the team must stop and recover the patient. If a team subsequently finds necessary roof supports to recover the patient, the team must stop prior to the number 5 member passing the roof support, retrieve the roof support, and recover the patient. So even while you're advancing, if you know that that person's there, you can't pass, your tail captain can't pass those timbers without going back and timbering that person. The team may perform any function during this team stop. However, you're not allowed to, again, build ventilation controls, timber unsafe roof, or pump water unless necessary to recover the patient. Then 2, if a team finds a patient in by an area of water over knee deep and has a pump available to pump the water, the team must stop and recover the patient. If the team finds the pump and the team must stop, retrieve the pump, pump the water, and recover the patient. The team may perform any function during this team stop. However, you're not required, again, you can't do any work other than recovering that patient unless it's necessary to recover that patient. Exploration may continue if necessary to ventilate an explosive mixture prior to energizing the pump. So basically just clarifying delay a little bit. And if you have means to get them out or you have means to ventilate, then you're required to get that patient or you're going to get the delay. Surface judge number 2, struck out or changes edits to be allowed on either map and added. Teams can edit their maps while at the fresh air base, but no side-by-side comparison is allowed. All communication with the fresh air base for map edits must be through communication systems and not in person. So you don't really necessarily have to stay in the mine anymore. You can come out to the fresh air base, but you can't do any side-by-side comparisons and don't communicate in person. You still have to use your radio or whatever communication device you're using. Under discounts, we struck out number 5, traveling at more than normal walking speed, and added team members running through the problem. But that requires both feet have to be off the ground at the same time. Number 7, we added while the team is advancing or retreating, just to help clarify it up a little bit. Number 5, same thing as, I mean, it's clarified in both, but we struck it out. Team members running through the problem, but both feet had to be off the ground at the same time. Under 13, we just struck out the 10th edition because we're using the 11th edition Brady. Written discounts, we just added in command center attendant for the number 7 person now. The average time discount, it's not every minute, it's every 3 minutes over the average time. And it's not a half a discount. We changed it to 1 discount. We struck out assistant because we changed that to the command center attendant, which was already in the rules. We just undid that from last time. Added a definition of smoke, and it's tiny particles of solid or liquid matter suspended in air. Under Bradis, we added or wing curtain, so you can have a line Bradis line curtain or a wing curtain. Same thing for the line curtain symbol. Under other objects, we struck out installed by the team, and a roof support is now a circle instead of an X. So the support installed by the team is a circle, and support found by the team is still an X. And that is all the changes that were made.
Thanks, Brad. Matt's already had audio problems, but I can see your chats. Do you have anything you want to put into a chat for us? Yeah, I don't see anything. Oh, here we go. Tiffany's got.
Sorry, that was me.
Matt says, I think Brian covered everything, but. And then Tiffany's got her email address up here if you have anything you want the committee to review.
Yeah, if you got any questions that, if you have any questions now, please ask them. But if you have any, think of anything later on, if you'll email Tiffany, and then we'll try to get that answered for you.
Brian, I do back on page 41, sir.
Okay,
If
let
you
me
go back to
that.
surface interpretation of Judge 2.
Okay.
Number 5. It said they can't teams can edit their maps, but I know in the past where you'd have the fresh air base stand up and walk over to the map man and actually look at his map. We don't allow that anymore, right?
That is correct. You cannot do it in person. It has to be through the communication system.
Okay, I just wanted to get clarification on that because in the past we used to be able to do that. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Brian.
Yeah, and I've seen a few teams do that before, but I guess the point is, instead of staying in the back of the mine and trying to do all your map corrections and see what's left up and what's left down and vice versa, you can come on out to the fresh air base, and especially if you're running close on time, come out, stand at the time clock, then get your maps right. But you still have to talk over the radio. You can't do it in person. And that goes for any time throughout the problem. So if you have questions while you're working the problem, teams come out to the fresh air base, you still can't communicate in person. It's got to be through the communication system. So I couldn't, if I was the fresh air base attendant, I couldn't stand up and walk over to the team and say, dummy, it's right here. But you know what I mean?
Well, Matt just put on a chat. If fresh air base looks at a team map, they cannot edit their map. They can look, but they can't talk. I'm just wanting to make sure because, you know, you have different folks do different stuff.
I guess if they're not communicating or saying anything to each other, I mean, we really haven't addressed that here. We just says you can't have that communication in person.
Well, that's what we'll do here at Missouri then. We just tell them, okay, you can't stand up and look at it.
Yeah, we may have to clean that up and address it next time. It's a little bit too late now, but I mean, if somebody gets up and goes and looks at a map and
without saying anything
or doesn't communicate, then
technically they haven't broken the rule.
we haven't captured that here yet. So
Okay.
we'll try to fix it on the next go around.
I'm not complaining, Brian. I'm just asking questions, sir.
I understand.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Hey, Brian, I might have about 3 questions for you if you don't care to answer. I know you scratched it out over in the general rules, but under interpretation, Judge 2 under 14, it still kind of addresses that if a survivor is unconscious, an approved oxygen breathing apparatus equipped with a full face piece must be used. Is that, in that interpretation, is that still supposed to, should that have been scratched out in that interpretation or?
What page are you on? Sorry.
Well, go to underground interpretation Judge 2 section. That would be 14 and it carries on over to the next page. I guess it's 44 because 43 and 44, I guess, is what page number it is.
14.
Number 14 rule. And it carries on over into the next page.
Mhm.
You kind of scratched that out and the general rules, but is that still covered? It says 1 hour oxygen generator. If a survivor is unconscious, an approved oxygen breathing apparatus equipment full face must be used.
Yeah, we We should have just added the word care event in there and just basically copy and paste out of the general rules.
But what I'm
Still have
saying,
to have it.
if they're unconscious, is it still required to have even though you ain't gonna take them through any irreversible atmosphere, IDLH, if they're unconscious, is that requiring them to still have apparatus on due to their unconscious?
Yeah, now.
Yeah, let me find it back up here in the general rules, sorry.
Cause you kind of scratched it out in the general rules. I see what page that was on,
Yeah, I'm trying to find it.
On page 18, near the top.
Page 18.
yeah, under team preparation.
Yeah, we just missed striking that out under the explanation.
Oh, so we're gonna go by the general rules, so they don't really need to put one on. Not unless it's, if you are gonna take them through it, we know the rules covers that, but in the past, we looked at that rule as saying if they're unconscious, they still had to have apparatus on them.
Yeah, if they're unconscious and we're not going through an IDLH atmosphere, then there's no need for it. That was the intention, that the reason why we struck it out. Because
Okay,
in real life, if there's no IDLH atmosphere, what are we going to do?
okay.
We're going to throw them on the stretcher and take them out. But
We're gonna, so that will be kind of scratched out in the interpretation then, what you're saying.
correct, yes.
Okay.
We just missed that. It's a good catch.
Now, I know you picked up a lot of these, examples of endangerment or team, thing. Refuge alternative is one of them kind that ain't never been addressed really in the metal side is RA. Now, if you do put a RA in a mental problem, does somebody have to be actually tied to that RA to go in it? Does somebody actually have to be able to see into it, see if there's visual or verbal contact, or are they actually tied to it in a refuge alternative? And my second question is, refuge alternative in the code does have a symbol for refuge alternative. Will we map that as an X in problem design?
Yep, it would be mapped as an X for us because we didn't add that into the rules or into the legend. And
Go ahead and answer that question.
yeah, and I don't think we address, being tied to an RA either, unless you get verbal communication there.
Okay.
So what you need to do whenever you design the problem, you got somebody in there, you just need to have them shout.
Okay.
I would say it'd be no different than finding a door and knocking on a door. If that creates the verbal notification or the verbal response, then that would be tied to beyond that point.
Correct. And that's something we can look at, when we review the rules again, if we want to add that in there, whether you're tied to it or you're not tied to it. But I kind of like the verbal contact myself.
It's either verbal or visual, right?
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. So if they're behind let's say a barricade or permanent stopping with a door or some other type of shop area or something, or respond to you, then you can't be tied to them. Respond to you, you're tied to them. If you see them under loose area that you verbally see that or visually see them, you're tied to them. So I think those same principles apply, whether it's RA, a door, a shop, or anything.
Correct. You're correct. Anything else?
Brian, I do have a question. We discussed this the other day at practice, and I know the new changes if we visually or verbally come in contact with a patient that's under loose and we do find timbers, we do have to get them. If for some chance we find a mine fire out of control or intense heat before we get to that victim, we don't have anything to build with. We come around the corner, we find a victim, and then there's apparatus and timbers there. what takes precedence? Because you're supposed to seal the fire without undue delay or regulate it, but you're also supposed to get the victim out without undue delay. And you don't, I mean, in my opinion, you don't want to pass the fire twice with the victim, and you want to make it as safe as possible. And we've came to the conclusion that we would probably take care of the fire before going back to get the victim, even though we do have all the materials there. What's everybody's take on that?
You must have been hanging out with Steve Setzer, weren't you?
Actually, I brought it up to Steve.
Oh, okay, well, good, because Steve called me about it as well.
As
We
I-
discussed, we brought it up to Steve, and he kind of shook his head about it and said, that's a good question. So we're just kind of wanting to see where we're at with that.
We
As a
did kind
problem
of,
designer myself, I try to stay away from putting two things in there like that would complicate somebody's in the rules. I would try to address that as a bad problem design if you done that too.
I wouldn't necessarily say a bad problem design, but here's the principle that I spoke to Steve about. You counter that could happen, right? The one thing that you have to understand, and everybody on this call knows this, is team safety. Become first and foremost. You have to be part of the situation, the solution, and not part of the scenario. So you don't jeopardize that. And when you're dealing with two of those items, when you have intense heat, fire out of control, things of those, your attention has to be at the team safety aspect. Now, it's not about how those scenarios fall within each other. It's always about how they're discounted. And my advice to problem designers who have those type of situations is that they remember the principles of mine rescue when it comes to the team being safe and creating a safe environment so that they can continue to perform their rescue operation or continue to not jeopardize what that fire or those type of scenarios might do for the rest of the mine. In that case, I would say your team safety would come into play, and your addressing of the fire out of control or intense heat, which would be the undue delay to identify all of those entries to then seal and regulate and have an understanding of what that looks like, not only for the rest of your operation, but for you as a team member, has to become the first exception to anything else that falls within that. That's kind of my thoughts around that. If you do run into a scenario like that, if it's me, I would not discount. I would look at that sequence of events of being that intense heat to that fire and what that might do for the rest of the mine. And then secondary would fall under that addressing what you saw underneath area that you could not physically get.
I agree 100%. And we also had that same conversation. So if it's in the same team stop, then you would address the fire first, even if you had to advance somewhere and seal the fire, and then you come back and get the patient. That is the intention. So we'll try to address that up and clean that up a little bit.
That's what we decided also, but I just wanted to clarify what everybody else had kind of thought about that.
Yep. Hopefully nobody has that issue or, and nobody gets discounted for that. If so, I mean, if you try to give us a heads up, we'll try to address it, but we will address it in the next rules review and get some language of clarification in there for that.
Hey, Brian,
To me, it's about how you discount it, right? Versus it being in the scenario, because it's a legitimate scenario.
Yep, correct.
hey, Brian, that stencil set in Visio that we can use on the metal side for drawing problems. I'm having some difficulty on the parts per million. It won't 999 as far as it can go up on parts per million CO. I talked to Drew about that, and I don't know if anybody's got back to see if they could update that. Drew with tech support, he was one kind of that put them online there for homes at one time. But has anybody else had that problem with parts per million Visio, in the stencil set. I'm trying to go over 999.
Yeah, we just been adding a text box in and fixing it like that.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, if they can fix it and upload the new version, then once they get it done and add that in there, then we can share it out to everybody. But simple text box should take care of it. And just note the correct.
Brian?
Yes, sir.
Yep. Yeah, Brian, this is Rowdy Heiser, American Soda team trainer. Got a couple questions for you. First is a clerical. Under the general rules and team members, when you read through that, there's reference to briefing officer and reference to assistant, and I know that doesn't necessarily jive with the fresh air base and the command center. I just wanted to bring that to your attention because when you read through that, when it bounces from briefing officer and then assistant, it can lead you to some unclarity in terms of who you're talking about, right? So I just bring that to your attention.
Yeah, we tried to make sure and go through that we struck all that out and added command center attendant, but we may have missed one or two there. So
yeah, just bringing that up on a clerical. Questions I have on under the communication system and being able to test your communication system before the captain goes on the clock. Is it safe to say that once the communication system's tested, it can remain on?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then the last one I have is the fresh air base. We're seeing situations where typically on day two of a contest problem where the fresh air base now has been advanced into the mine. My question is once the fresh air base is now considered to be in the mine, for example, on day one, maybe it was a shaft mine, so it was located outside of the mine. Once it's in the mine, we're running into some confusion at times and clarity as to if the fresh air base table's there and what constitutes what's been explored. Is that crosscut been explored that's in? Or is it up to any ventilation controls? Or is it 3 foot in by that crosscut? Can you help me out with that?
And it should be the crosscut that the fresh air base is in up to the plane before making entry to the mine. So once you go in by at that first plane before you break that, of course you're allowed to check the entries at the fresh air base, but once you break that plane entering, then that's not considered explored. And your maps should denote the exact location of the fresh air base. So whether it's in the pillar, outside the pillar, wherever the case it may be.
Right. And that's the way we've been training to. So I appreciate that. And then would we expect to get the rules? In years past, we had them printed in the smaller books, and the red lines have been all deleted. Is that something that the group is going to navigate to?
Yeah, it's hopeful that we can get the little books back, but that all depends on the printing at MSHA. So,
all right, fair enough. I appreciate your time.
Nope, thank you. Anything else?
Hey, this is Justin with Wholesome Limestone up here in Northern Illinois. I hate to have you repeat something here, but regarding the unconscious patient, if they no longer have to have like our biopacks or something like that put on them, am I missing something in the rules? Is there really any reason to be bringing a breathing apparatus into the problem with us, or can we just bring our SDSRs?
No, you still have to bring the breathing apparatus with you because One, it's there for if you or one of your teammates have a issue on the field. Then next, for that patient that's unconscious, if you have to bring them back out through a IDLH atmosphere, then they would require the apparatus to be put on.
Okay, so SCSR is not mentioned for IDLH. 10-4, thank you.
Correct. Yep.
Hey, Brian, wouldn't a care event be used for that as well?
A care event can be used for that, yes.
Hey, Brian, Matt just said unconscious patients have to wear a full face piece.
No, we struck that out of the rules. Only if they're in an IDLH atmosphere or coming through an IDLH atmosphere. Anything else?
Okay, Brian, well, thanks again. We really covered a lot of bases here. So. And I think everybody got a lot out of the session today. And the rules are posted up on the MSHA website if anyone wants to do. Also, this recording will be available. And I guess Tiffany told you how to get to it. Tiffany, you want to go over that one more time?
Yeah, for the videos, we'll get those edited up just to take out any blank spaces or anything like that. And they will be on YouTube under what is kind of a secret squirrel page for the Academy. And I'm sure we'll have the links probably up on the home site, and we'll work to get them listed on the same page where the links are to the rules documents. So we're looking to get those up within the next week or so. I know that there is contest coming up, so we're working to get that done as quickly as possible. And we should be sending out a link to everyone so that you know that they're ready for viewing.
Great. Appreciate it, Tiffany.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, tomorrow we'll reconvene for first aid at 10 o'clock in the morning, Eastern.
Yeah, no, one more thing about the rules, Jeff. I know that medals, we typically have done it every 2 years in the past, but I think we're going to fall in just like Cole and everybody else doing it on an annual basis. That way there's not so many changes to go through. Hopefully it's just clarification of things. So
yeah, that'd be good. All right.
Thank you. There was a message. I believe that Erica did send out a roster in email. And that roster needs to be signed and sent back to her. I will be doing an attendance report based off of the WebEx, but if anyone, for folks that just called in and it's just showing me that you're, call-in user 4, or if you just logged in with just a first name or a nickname, then I won't have your name properly to mark you. So please do still send in your attendance to Erica Warren. And if you don't have the roster, you can send me an email. Like I said, my email address is blair.tiffany@dol.gov, and we can get that file to you.
Tiffany, this is Michelle. Instead of sending the sign-in sheets to Erica, they need to come to me.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Would you mind giving them your contact info?
Okay, it's Michelle Abner, ABNER .Michelle @dol.gov.
Okay, and that's Michelle with 2 L's, correct?
Yes, MICHELLE.
Well, if we've already emailed them to Erica, do you want me to turn around and email them to you as well?
No, she's already forwarding them to me. That's okay.
Okay, I apologize. Thank you.
That's okay, no problem. Thank you.
Okay, well, thanks, everybody. And as I said, we'll reconvene tomorrow at 10 a.m. Eastern for first aid. Have a good night.
Thanks, everyone.